The desert planet of Krillin stretched endlessly under a harsh sun. Dust storms were common, and the wind carried the scent of strange minerals and scorched sand. Among the craggy cliffs and rust-colored dunes, few dared to travel alone. But Jace, a human mechanic, was no ordinary traveler. His hands were skilled in repairing spacecraft, mining machines, and almost anything with metal and gears. He knew the dangers, yet he walked the desert paths with confidence and care. Jace had been on Krillin for 5 years. He repaired mining ships, old cargo vessels, and even small personal crafts for the miners who risked the planet's storms every day. Life was hard here, but it was honest, and Jace liked the quiet rhythm of work, sand, and machines. Today, though, he was out on a supply run. His speeder hummed over the sand, carrying spare tools, fuel cells, and rations for the miners at the outposts. As he drove, something unusual caught his eye: a faint shimmer under the rocks near a narrow canyon. At first, he thought it was a piece of discarded metal, perhaps a broken drone or a miner's lost crate. But when he slowed the speeder and squinted, he realized it wasn't metal. The shimmer moved. Cautiously, Jace stepped closer, his boots sinking slightly into the soft sand. There, half buried under fallen rocks, was a creature unlike anything he had ever seen. It was large, about the size of a small car, with long limbs folded awkwardly under its body. Its scales were white as snow, glinting faintly under the sun. Its eyes were open, large and violet, and they looked at him with something that was almost human: pain, fear, and hope. The creature tried to lift a claw, but it twitched uselessly. Jace's stomach tightened. The alien was clearly injured, and badly. Its legs seemed broken and one wing was torn. Yet even in its weakness, there was a quiet strength in its gaze. It was alive, and it seemed to trust him. Jace knelt slowly, speaking softly. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." His voice sounded strange to him, too gentle for a desert full of dangers. The alien blinked, tilting its head as if trying to understand. Its breathing was shallow, and the sound made Jace's heart ache. He looked around. There was no one in sight, no other creatures, no signs of life except the shifting sand and jagged rocks. The storm clouds were rising in the distance. If he left the creature here, it would not survive the night. And if the desert predators found it first? Well, Jace didn't want to imagine that. With effort, he knelt closer and examined it. Its tail was long and thick, helping balance its body, but it lay limply on the sand. Its wings had a delicate membrane stretched between bony supports, one side shredded. "You're in bad shape," Jace muttered, "but I can help you. Maybe." He didn't know if he could, but he couldn't leave it there. Carefully, he checked under the rocks. One was loose, small enough for him to lift. He slid it out and supported the alien's body. It hissed softly, not in anger, but fear. Jace kept talking, trying to calm it. Using all his strength, he lifted the creature onto his speeder. It wasn't easy. The alien was heavy and its body was oddly shaped, but Jace had lifted engines heavier than this before. The alien did not resist. It allowed him to place it gently on the cargo bed. Its eyes followed him, wide and trusting. Jace's hands trembled slightly. He had saved many machines in his life, but never a living creature like this. The ride back to his workshop was tense. Every bump in the sand made the alien grunt or shiver. Jace wrapped pieces of cloth around its body to support the broken wing and keep it warm. "Hang on, okay? You're safe now. I'll fix you." His words felt strange, almost silly. How could he fix something like this? But he knew one thing: he would try. When he reached the small workshop he had built at the edge of the cliffs, he eased the alien inside. The building was simple, filled with tools, machines, and half-finished repairs, but it would serve. He cleared space on the floor, placing soft mats and blankets under the alien's body. He had no idea how to treat an injured alien dragon, but he had human ingenuity, and he had determination. That would have to be enough. Jace worked through the evening using what he knew: He applied cooled gel from his first aid kit to the torn wing, gently wrapping it with soft fabric. He checked the legs, feeling the broken joints, and tried to stabilize them with supports made from spare pipes and tubing. The alien hissed, flinching when something hurt, but it did not try to bite or escape. It seemed to understand that Jace meant no harm. As night fell, the desert winds howled outside, rattling the workshop's metal walls. Jace sat beside the alien, exhausted. "I don't know if you'll ever walk again," he admitted quietly, "but I'll do everything I can." The alien's eyes met his, reflecting the dim light of the lamps. For a moment, they simply looked at each other. The alien made a small, almost inaudible sound, like a whisper or sigh. Jace tilted his head. Could it be gratitude? Perhaps in a way only a creature like this could show. Over the next few hours, Jace checked the alien again and again. He made sure it was breathing steadily, applied more cooling gel to the wing, and adjusted the leg supports. He even fed it some nutrient paste he had for machinery batteries. Oddly, it ate. Slowly, it began to drink water from a shallow container. It was a small victory, but in Jace's eyes it was huge. He leaned back against the wall, letting out a sigh of relief. "Tomorrow, we start the real work," he whispered. Outside, the stars shone brilliantly over the desert. Krillin's sky was clear now, and the silence was peaceful. For the first time in years, Jace felt hope, not for himself but for someone else. He couldn't know what the future held. Could this alien dragon ever walk again? Could it fly? He didn't know, but Jace had something that mattered more than certainty. He had courage, patience, and the refusal to give up. And perhaps that was enough to start a miracle. The night passed slowly. Every time the alien moved slightly or twitched a claw, Jace felt a spark of excitement. He realized that life on Krillin was not just about survival. It was about connection, trust, and the small victories that made it all meaningful. As the first light of dawn crept through the workshop windows, Jace looked at the alien. Its scales glimmered pale in the early sun. The broken wing and paralyzed legs were still there, but somehow there was strength in its eyes. Jace smiled. "We'll fix you," he said. "I promise." And in that quiet moment, neither human nor alien realized just how extraordinary their bond would become, or how far they would go together. The morning sun poured golden light into Jace's small workshop, painting the alien dragon's white scales with a warm glow. It lay on the mats, its body still weak, its wings crumpled, and its legs trembling slightly whenever it tried to move. Jace had spent the night beside it, studying its breathing, checking its limbs, and planning his next steps. He knew the creature's survival depended not only on medicine, but also on careful attention, patience, and human creativity. Jace moved quietly around the workshop, preparing the tools and materials he would need for the day. He had salvaged parts from old mining equipment, metal rods, pulleys, and soft padding, and arranged them carefully. His mind worked quickly, blending what he knew of human medicine with the strange biology of the alien dragon. "This is going to be tricky," he murmured to himself, "but nothing I can't handle." He started with the wings. One of them was badly torn, the delicate membranes frayed and weak. Jace gently examined it. "We need to support this," he said. Using thin metal rods he bent carefully, he created a lightweight frame. Then he wrapped the membrane in soft cloth to prevent further damage. He could see the alien's wings twitch slightly as he worked, almost like it was testing the support. Next came the legs. The alien's hind limbs were stiff and paralyzed from the waist down. Jace had no idea if they would ever move again, but he refused to give up. He constructed simple mechanical braces from scrap tubing and flexible joints, fastening them gently to the legs. The alien hissed once when the brace touched a sore spot, but Jace whispered softly, "I know it hurts. I'm helping you." Slowly, it relaxed. As the morning turned to afternoon, Jace brought out a small container of nutrient paste. It was designed for human miners, but he hoped it could provide some energy to the dragon. The creature sniffed the paste cautiously, then licked it, tentatively. It ate slowly, But the fact that it was eating at all gave Jace a surge of hope. Hours passed as Jace worked tirelessly. He cleaned wounds, applied cooling gels, adjusted supports, and spoke softly to the dragon. At first, the alien seemed unsure of him, flinching at every movement. But gradually, it started to trust him. Its violet eyes followed Jace constantly, and sometimes it would tilt its head or make soft sounds, almost like a purr. Despite the progress, challenges remained. The alien's body was fragile and every small movement risked injury. Jace realized that he would have to invent new ways to help it regain strength. He studied his old repair manuals, diagrams, and schematics for machines, thinking about how he could combine them with living biology. By evening, Jace had crafted a mechanical harness to help the alien move its legs slightly. The harness used pulleys and cables to lift and support its body, allowing the dragon to experiment with motion without collapsing. He carefully placed the dragon inside and tightened the straps. The alien hissed nervously, but allowed him to adjust the system. "Okay, let's see if we can get you moving," Jace whispered. Slowly, he pulled the levers, and the alien's legs twitched. At first, it was weak, almost nothing, but then, a tiny shift forward. Its claws scraped the mat slightly. Jace grinned. "There, that's it. You're trying." The dragon's head lifted slightly, and its tail flicked in response. The first days were exhausting. Jace barely slept, working late into the night, but he didn't mind. He felt alive in a way he hadn't in years. This was not just about fixing a machine. This was about saving a life, and perhaps forming a bond that no human or alien had ever experienced. One evening, as the desert wind howled outside, a small sandstorm approached. Jace noticed it through the workshop's transparent walls. "Storm's coming," he muttered. "We need to secure everything." He reinforced the windows and covered delicate equipment, but his attention kept returning to the dragon. He wrapped it carefully in blankets, adjusting the harness to protect it from the jostling wind. The storm raged through the night, sand beating against the walls and shaking the workshop. The alien growled softly, frightened by the noise. Jace stayed by its side, holding a hand on its head. "It's okay, I'm right here, you're safe." The dragon leaned slightly into his hand, trusting him completely for the first time. After the storm passed, the desert was calm, the sand smooth as if the chaos had never existed. The alien's eyes glimmered in the soft morning light. Jace smiled. "We survived that. And we'll survive the rest too." Over the next few weeks, Jace continued the healing process. He refined the mechanical braces, experimenting with new ways to help the dragon move. Some days were frustrating. The alien would resist, or a wing would tear slightly, or the legs would refuse to cooperate. But Jace refused to give up. He believed that persistence, ingenuity, and care could overcome almost any obstacle. The alien, too, began showing signs of progress. It started to respond emotionally, nuzzling Jace when he approached or flicking its tail when it was content. Jace noticed subtle behaviors. The way it followed his movements, the way it tilted its head when curious, and the quiet, hum-like sounds it made when comfortable. Slowly, a bond was forming between human and alien, one built on trust and shared struggle. One afternoon, a new challenge appeared. A group of scavengers, drawn by rumors of rare alien creatures on Krillin, approached the workshop. Jace had anticipated this, so he had reinforced the doors and windows. When the scavengers tried to force entry, he managed to hold them off with clever traps and barricades. The dragon, though still weak, hissed and spat small bursts of plasma from its mouth in warning. Even paralyzed, it could defend its home. Jace realized something important. Even in weakness, the dragon had strength and courage. And together, they could face dangers that neither could survive alone. That night, Jace repaired the workshop and checked the dragon's injuries again. He felt pride, not just in his skills, but in the creature's resilience. Weeks turned into months. Slowly, the alien's muscles regained tone, and small movements became stronger. The harness allowed it to stand partially on its legs for brief moments. Its wings, though still fragile, began stretching and flexing under Jace's careful guidance. And through it all, The bond between human and dragon deepened. Jace often spoke to it during the long nights. "You'll fly again," he promised. "I don't know when, but you will. And I'll be here every step." The dragon would tilt its head, blink slowly, and sometimes press its forehead against Jace's hand. It was a gesture of trust, an acknowledgement that the human was more than a caretaker. He was a friend. One morning, a small miracle occurred. The dragon's hind legs, which had been paralyzed for months, twitched more strongly than ever. It managed to push itself up slightly, using the harness for support. Jace's heart raced. "You did it." "Look at that!" The alien hissed in surprise and pleasure, and then flopped back onto the mats, exhausted but alive. Jace realized something profound. The combination of human ingenuity and the alien's determination was creating results that neither could achieve alone. He began refining the harness further, adding flexible supports to encourage natural movement and muscle growth. At night, as the desert wind whispered outside, Jace reflected on everything they had endured together. From the first moment he had found the alien buried under rocks, to the long hours of healing, to the sandstorms and scavenger attacks, they had survived because of trust, courage, and patience. And most importantly, they had formed a bond that transcended species, a connection between human heart and alien soul. By the end of Part 2, the dragon was still not fully healed, but hope shone brightly. It could now stand partially, move its claws, and stretch its wings without tearing them further. Jace knew the real challenges were still ahead, but he was ready. Together, they would continue the journey towards strength, mobility, and perhaps flight. The workshop was quiet now. The alien rested, tired but alive, and Jace sat beside it, cleaning tools and making notes for the next day's work. The stars of Krillin glittered outside the window, and as Jace looked at the dragon, he whispered, "You're going to walk again, and one day you'll fly, I promise." Weeks had passed since the storm that had almost destroyed Jace's workshop, and the alien dragon was slowly regaining strength. The creature, which Jace had started calling Leora, had grown more curious about its surroundings. Its eyes sparkled with intelligence, and it began observing every movement Jace made, sometimes even attempting to mimic small motions with its claws. Jace had refined the mechanical harness, allowing Leora to stand upright for longer periods. Her legs, while still weak, responded more strongly to gentle support. Her wings, though still fragile, could now flap slightly without tearing. It was slow progress, but it was real progress, and with each success, their bond grew deeper. "Good morning, Leora," Jace said one soft morning as he entered the workshop. The dragon lifted her head and blinked, a low, curious hum escaping her throat. She had learned to recognize his voice. The sound seemed to comfort her, and she stretched her wings slightly, testing the air. Jace smiled. "Let's see how far we can get today." He adjusted the harness around her hind legs, attaching new pulleys he had designed to assist in walking. Today, they would attempt something new, a short walk along the padded floor of the workshop. Carefully, he guided Leora to the floor. At first, she hesitated, pressing her claws lightly against the mat. Her legs shook under her weight, and a small hiss escaped her throat in frustration. Jace crouched beside her. "I know it's hard. Take your time." He gently lifted her body with the harness, allowing her to feel the motion without collapsing. Slowly, almost painfully, she moved a claw forward, then another. The movement was awkward, uncoordinated, but it was there. Jace's heart leapt. "Yes, that's it. Keep going." Encouraged, Leora tried again, and this time she managed a few small steps. Her tail swayed for balance, and her head lifted proudly. The moment was pure triumph. Jace laughed, tears of joy in his eyes. "You're amazing, Leora. Look at you." She responded with a soft, roar-like hum, the sound vibrating through the workshop. It was a sound of excitement, of recognition, of trust. Over the next several days, Jace continued to push Leora gently but carefully. He experimented with small exercises to strengthen her muscles. He had created soft mats, ramps, and even small weights to encourage gradual improvement. Every time she stumbled or faltered, he whispered encouragement. and every time she succeeded, even slightly, he celebrated with her. During these exercises, Leora began showing personality in new ways. She would nuzzle Jace's hands when he helped her, flick her tail playfully when he approached, and occasionally attempt to mimic his movements. Jace was amazed. Here was a creature that had been paralyzed, weak, and afraid, now demonstrating curiosity, intelligence, and joy. One afternoon, while adjusting the harness for her legs, Jace noticed a change. Leora had started testing her strength without guidance, stretching her hind legs and flexing her claws. She pressed against the floor and lifted slightly, almost like she was practicing standing on her own. Jace's heart raced. Could she actually be trying to walk independently? "Good girl," he whispered, careful not to startle her. "You're doing it." The next days were filled with small victories. Leora managed to take several steps without falling, supported by the harness. She flapped her wings more confidently, and her eyes glimmered with excitement each time she succeeded. It was as if she had discovered the joy of movement again, and Jace felt a deep connection to that triumph. But with progress came new challenges. Leora was growing stronger, and the harness that had protected her could now feel restrictive. She would try to twist, move faster, and test her limits. Jace had to continually invent new supports, balancing freedom with safety. It was a delicate dance, but he enjoyed the challenge. He had spent years repairing machines, but now he was helping a living being rebuild itself, and that was far more rewarding. One evening, as the desert sun set behind the cliffs, painting the sky in shades of red and gold, a sudden noise echoed outside the workshop. Jace froze. He had learned to recognize the sounds of Krillon's desert: sandstorms, predators, and scavengers. This was something different. He peered out and saw figures moving across the dunes. Scavengers. Jace's first instinct was to protect Leora. He quickly adjusted her harness, ensuring she could stay low and safe. But he noticed something extraordinary. Even in her partially healed state, Leora responded instinctively. Her wings twitched, her tail lashed, and she emitted a low, warning hum. The scavengers hesitated, clearly wary of the alien's power. Jace realized then what he had not fully understood before. Leora was not just a fragile creature. She had strength, instincts, and courage. Even in her weakened state, she could protect both herself and Jace. And together, they were a team, combining human ingenuity and alien power. The scavengers retreated slowly, unsure of how to handle the partially healed dragon. Jace let out a long breath, relief flooding through him. He knelt beside Leora, scratching behind her ears. "You did well," he whispered. "Even like this, you're brave." She leaned into his touch, a soft hum of satisfaction escaping her throat. Days passed, and Leora's movements became smoother. She could now stand unassisted for several minutes, and her legs bore her weight with increasing confidence. She flapped her wings more vigorously, though she still couldn't lift off. Jace had started designing small glider attachments, hoping to help her practice flight safely. Their bond deepened beyond healer and patient. Leora seemed to understand Jace's intentions, following his gestures, responding to his words, and even resting her head on his shoulder when tired. Jace, in turn, had learned patience, empathy, and the power of small victories. He had spent much of his life fixing machines, but nothing had given him the joy he felt seeing a living being reclaim its strength. One morning, Jace brought in a small obstacle course he had designed to test Leora's coordination. Soft ramps, padded hurdles, and gentle inclines allowed her to practice walking and stretching her wings. Leora approached cautiously at first, but soon she was moving with determination, navigating the course step by step. "Look at you!" Jace exclaimed, clapping his hands. "You're amazing!" Leora paused mid-step, as if acknowledging the praise, then continued with renewed vigor. Her tail flicked with excitement, and her wings flapped slightly in triumph. Jace realized that Leora was not only recovering physically but learning confidence. She had endured months of pain, fear, and immobility, yet her spirit remained unbroken. And as her strength grew, so did the understanding between them. They were partners now, bound by trust and shared effort. One quiet evening, as they rested after a long day of exercises, Jace spoke softly. I know it's been hard, but look at how far you've come. One day you'll walk fully, and then maybe you'll fly. I'll be there with you. Every step, every flap. Leora leaned against him, a low hum vibrating in her chest, as if promising she would try. It was a moment of mutual understanding. Jace had saved Leora, but she had also given him something invaluable. The knowledge that humans could change the fate of others through compassion, ingenuity, and courage. And Leora had shown that even the most powerful beings needed trust and care to heal. The night passed peacefully, and when the first light of dawn touched the workshop, Jace and Leora were ready to continue. He had new ideas for strengthening her legs and practicing controlled wing flaps. The journey was far from over, but both human and dragon felt a renewed sense of purpose. As Jace watched Leora stretch her wings and test her balance, he realized something extraordinary. This was more than recovery. It was a rebirth. The desert planet of Krillin, once harsh and unforgiving, had become the stage for a miracle. And at the heart of it, a human and an alien dragon had forged a bond that would withstand any challenge. Part 3 ended with hope and determination. Leora was no longer just a wounded creature. She was a partner, a student of human ingenuity, and a symbol of resilience. And Jace knew that the next steps would be the hardest yet, helping her walk fully, regain her strength, and prepare for flight. The desert sun rose slowly over Krillin, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson. The wind was calm, a gentle whisper across the dunes, and the air smelled faintly of scorched sand and minerals. Inside the workshop, Jace moved quietly, preparing for the day ahead. He had spent months helping Leora, the albino alien dragon, regain her strength, and today felt different. There was a sense of anticipation, a spark in the air that told him that something extraordinary was about to happen. Leora lay on her mats, her wings stretching gently, her claws flexing, and her legs moving with confidence she had never shown before. She had grown stronger, more coordinated, and more aware of her surroundings. But what excited Jace the most was that her body was finally ready to support her fully. The braces and harnesses were no longer necessary. She could stand on her own. "Good morning, Leora," Jace said softly, smiling as he approached. She lifted her head and let out a soft hum in response, her violet eyes bright with curiosity and intelligence. He knelt beside her and extended a hand. "Today, we try something new. We see if you can stand fully, without help." The alien's tail twitched in anticipation. She had grown to trust Jace completely, understanding that his hands and guidance meant safety. Slowly, Jace helped her rise, using only gentle support at her shoulders. Leora pressed her claws against the mats, shifting her weight, and then she stood fully on her own legs. It was a moment of triumph. Jace's heart leapt. "You did it! You're standing all by yourself!" Leora blinked, then let out a soft roar of excitement, her wings flaring slightly as if to celebrate. She took a tentative step forward, wobbly at first, then another. Each movement grew stronger and more confident. Jace laughed with joy, clapping his hands. "That's it. Look at you. You're walking." Leora's tail swayed, her wings lifted, and her violet eyes shone with pride. She had reclaimed mobility, something no one had thought possible when Jace first found her injured and paralyzed. Over the next few days, Jace and Leora worked tirelessly. He designed exercise routines and soft obstacle courses to help her legs gain endurance. She ran short distances across padded floors, navigated ramps, and practiced controlled turns. With each session, she grew faster, stronger, and more confident. But there was one goal that had haunted Jace since the beginning: flight. Leora's wings were now healed enough to flap powerfully, yet she had never attempted to lift off the ground. Jace had built small glider supports and mechanical lifts to assist her, but today, he decided to try something different. "Leora," he whispered as he approached, "you're ready. I know you are. We'll start slow. Just flap your wings, feel the air, and trust yourself." The alien tilted her head, studying him carefully. She had learned to understand his intentions and the gentle tone of his voice. Slowly, she extended her wings fully, the membranes stretching wide. catching the morning light. She flexed her claws, pressed her tail for balance, and prepared to leap. Jace held his breath. With a quick motion, he released his gentle hold. And Leora leapt from the ground. At first she stumbled, her legs barely leaving the floor, but instinct took over. Her wings flapped strongly, catching the air, and she rose slightly, just a few inches, then a few more. Jace cheered, his voice echoing through the workshop. "Yes, that's it! Keep going!" The alien's violet eyes sparkled with determination. She flapped her wings harder, pushing herself higher, and then she was airborne. Leora hovered above the mats for several seconds, her tail acting as a rudder, her claws flexing, her wings strong and steady. She emitted a soft roar of joy, the sound vibrating in the small workshop. Jace ran toward her, tears of happiness in his eyes. "You're flying! You're really flying!" Leora circled the workshop once, then landed gracefully, her feet touching the floor softly. She blinked at him, as if to say, "Look, I did it. Together, we did it." Over the next few days, their training intensified. Leora learned to control her movements, take off with precision, and land safely. Jace guided her through short flights inside the workshop, then gradually increased the distance. She would flap, soar, glide, and land, each time improving her skill. But the real test came when Jace decided it was time to take her outside. The desert sky stretched endlessly, and the open space offered the freedom Leora had been waiting for. Jace led her to a high cliff near the workshop, a place where the wind currents were strong and steady. He looked at her, his heart pounding with excitement and pride. "Are you ready, Leora?" he asked softly. The alien blinked, then extended her wings fully. She shifted her weight, feeling the cliff edge beneath her claws, and let out a low, excited hum. Jace stepped back, giving her space, and whispered, "Trust yourself. You can do this." With a powerful leap, Leora soared off the cliff, catching the wind with her strong wings. For a moment, Jace held his breath, watching as she glided effortlessly. Then she flapped, lifted higher, and began to circle above the cliffs. Her roar of joy carried across the desert, echoing through the dunes. Jace ran to the edge, laughing and cheering. "You're amazing! Look at you go!" Leora banked in the air, gliding gracefully, her wings catching the sunlight. She swooped low, then rose high, performing the first flight any human had ever witnessed of this rare albino dragon species. The bond between them had reached a new level. Jace realized that humans had given Leora life again, and in return, she had shown him the power of resilience, trust, and determination. Together, they had achieved what no one thought possible. As the days passed, Leora's flights became longer and more controlled. She could soar high, hover, and even swoop gracefully over the desert sands. Jace began experimenting with signal devices and commands, teaching her to respond to gestures and sounds. Leora, intelligent and quick to learn, adapted almost instantly. One evening, after a full day of flying, Leora landed beside Jace on a cliff overlooking the desert. The sun was setting, painting the sky in deep oranges and purples. She lowered her wings, rested her head against his shoulder, and let out a soft hum of contentment. Jace smiled, brushing his hand along her scales. "We did it, Leora. You're free. You can fly, you can walk, and you're strong. I'm so proud of you." The dragon's violet eyes met his, full of understanding and trust. That night, as they watched the stars of Krillin, Jace reflected on the journey. He remembered the moment he had found her buried under rocks, paralyzed and weak. He remembered the long nights of healing, the sandstorms, the scavengers, and the countless hours of careful training. And now, here she was, strong, alive, and soaring through the sky. He realized something profound. Humans were not just fragile beings in the universe. They had ingenuity, courage, and compassion that could change the fate of even the strongest creatures. And Leora had proven that even the most powerful beings could heal, adapt, and thrive with trust and care. Days turned into weeks, and Jace and Leora became a legend on Krillin. Miners and travelers spoke of the Humyn who had saved and trained an albino dragon, a story of hope and courage. Jace continued to help her refine her flights, teaching her to navigate long distances, control her movements precisely, and even respond to signals that could be used for rescue missions or exploration. Together, they explored the deserts, cliffs, and canyons. Leora would soar above, scouting the terrain, while Jace followed on his speeder, amazed at her agility and grace. They were partners now, bound by trust, experience, and mutual respect. One calm morning, as Leora hovered above the cliffs, she let out a long, joyous roar, her wings catching the rising sun. Jace watched from below, feeling an overwhelming sense of pride and wonder. He had saved her, yes, but she had also given him a gift: the knowledge that humans could achieve extraordinary things when guided by heart, intelligence, and determination. And in that moment, as the wind carried Leora higher and higher, Jace realized that this was only the beginning. Together, they could face any challenge Krillin or the universe threw at them. Humans and dragons working together, proving that courage, creativity, and compassion could overcome any obstacle. The miracle was complete. Leora walked, she ran, she flew. And Jace, the human mechanic, had discovered that sometimes saving a life could also change the world, for both species, for the better.